नमस्कार दोस्तों, मैं अतुल जोशी AMV न्यूज़ में आप सभी का हार्दिक स्वागत करता हूं। जैसे कि आपको मालूम है, AMV न्यूज़ फ़ोटो वीडियो इंडस्ट्रीज से जुड़ी हुई खबरें आप तक पहुंचाता है। ये चैनल्स YouTube पर मंगलवार रात को 8 बजे रिलीज़ होती है, नए प्रोडक्ट नई सर्विस के साथ। और स्पेशली ये चैनल्स फेसबुक, इंस्टा और व्हाट्सएप के ऊपर भी सभी ग्रुप में हम इंफॉर्मेशन शेयर करते हैं। तो आइए सबसे पहले देखते हैं आज की हेडलाइंस। तो आइए शुरू करते हैं AMV न्यूज़।
I never thought about that, and I did a little test thing and wrote something. And she wrote for PR companies. So she was writing. My dad would write copy for radio and TV. And I wrote this thing, and it was even I was bored by it. And she goes, "Why don't you just tell me about it?" And I did. She goes, "Write that down." And that was amazing advice. And so now I write for Vanity Fair and Newsweek, like you saw that thing I did, you know. So I married the two. And now with the tighter budgets in the world, if you want to do travel documentary photography, if you can put some words to your photographs, you really can go off in the world and generate your own stuff. And so that was amazing advice and something that I just was out of the blue. And so starting out these days, it's a very different world than when we started out with film. I never thought I would shoot digital. I remember the editor of Outdoor Photographer saying, "You're going to be shooting digital in a couple of years." I said, "I'll never shoot digital." And I was serious. You know, in the very beginning, it used to be like 2 megabytes, and there was a shutter lag and all that. But now all I do is shoot digital. I haven't touched a roll of film. And I see students now, there's a whole retro thing, but this is for your school as well. Please, if you have the opportunity, if somebody's shooting film, tell them, go into a wet dark room and process it. It made us way better photographers. We know f-stops. You know, people are so shocked. How do you know outside during the sun, f16, you know, 1/100th of 1/25th of a second? How can we see it and know within a third of a stop? But when you're in a dark room and you're struggling with a print because it's too bright, too dark, in other words, under or overexposed, get into that wet dark room and print. So it's not enough, I think, in this retro thing now about just shooting some film. It's actually getting into a dark room and making a print. So that would be my advice for these days.
Thank you. Is there a difference in the kind of projects that attracted you when you were starting out versus what you look for now?
So I've always been interested in cultures, always. You know, my whole life has been photographing cultures. And, you know, I made my money shooting big advertising campaigns. I would take the money that I would earn from these campaigns, and I would take that money and I would shoot personal projects. And this is something I want to tell all of you photographers out there. If you're not working on a personal project, you're not helping yourself. Do not work just for money. Work for yourself. Work for your heart. Make yourself happy. It's the most important work you'll ever do. I don't get hired today because of the last advertising campaign I did. I get still hired today because of my personal work. They want to work with photographers that have their own ideas. So I'm sorry I got off track a minute there. But I photograph cultures. The first culture that I photographed in the 80s was the blues musicians. From the blues musicians, I went on to bike.
And so in recent years, you know, I've probably gotten heavier into things like, you know, covering a war in Ukraine, which I think when I was younger I would not have thought of doing. But even then, I'm looking for a more humanistic story about, you know, people trying to rescue animals from war zones, things like that. But it's still basically the same thing, just freezing moments in time. And also, by the way, as I think I mentioned earlier, my master's special major combining photography and history. So anything where you can freeze a moment in time that has to do with history, just like COVID, as you can see with that Naked Hollywood series. I mean, in 100 years ago, 1917, we had the Spanish flu, and that was a pandemic. And the only way we know about it now is through photographs. And so, right now, all this stuff is very fresh. We're just barely coming out of the pandemic now. But just imagine 50 years, it would be a record of what it was like at this time that will be only remembered through photographs and video, obviously.
Thank you. What is some advice that you would give photographers who've spent 3 to 5 years in the industry and are feeling stuck, stagnated, like their career is not progressing? What's your advice that you would give them in terms of that?
If you're stuck, go to a museum, go to a gallery, open up some photography books, go to lectures, get off your butt and do it, you know? You're not going to get inspired by feeling sorry for yourself, staying at home, and feeling like you can't do it. You can do it. And you can come out of that funk. We all go into funks. You know, I just recently took a sabbatical from shooting projects because for 45 years, I never, ever didn't have a project going on. And I kind of burnt myself out, so I had to take some time off. But when I get in a funk, I go to a museum. Or I go to an art fair. I go to Perry Photo, and where they have one of the largest photo exhibitions in the world. Now, I'm not going there to look for ideas because I don't want to see an idea on a wall and go back to Chicago and create that. I just want to get my juices going. You know, I want to go. You know, you go to a museum or you go to one of these fairs, and it's a pretty big swift kick in the butt. That wow, there's some amazing work out there, and if I want to stay here, I better create some more amazing work. You know, and you will come out of it. I mean, here's another way. I just want to tell you a way that ideas come to me, and that's through meditation. We're in India. We're in the land of meditation. When you close your eyes and you erase all other thoughts from the world and you go deep into your meditation, ideas will come to you. And when you get out of that meditation, write those ideas down. In America, we have a great, great director. His name is David Lynch. He's probably created some of the best films in the world. He is also...
Mika, my ex-wife, and then her friends, and that sort of went out further, but there's a lot of times when I was just on the men's side. And so the only way that could happen is that I have studied Japanese and worked really hard at it. If I did not have the language ability, there's not a chance in the world that would happen. And then when I got the first book out, then I had a calling card. And lots and lots and lots and lots of magazines have featured that work. And so it gets easier. And
I was extremely impressed with the files that came out of that camera. If you get a moment, you know, after that time, to come up and take a look at these prints here. They are absolutely gorgeous. They're beautiful, beautiful prints. And I would, you know, I've been a, excuse me, Fuji, but I've been a Hasselblad shooter for 40 plus years. when it comes to medium format. And I shot medium format here in India at our classroom. And I'll tell you, what came out of that medium format Fuji camera equals what I've been working with Hasselblad. It's incredible. It was very user friendly. I enjoyed it. And then there's another camera that I saw a lot of my students using, and it was the XPS. And when you get a chance, come up here and take a look at these cameras. But it's a kind of a retro-looking film camera. So for sure, for you younger photographers, you want to have the kind of that film feel to it. It's a digital camera, but I'm going to tell you, it was just a beautiful camera. And so many of the students were picking this up and just absolutely loving it. So, this is a system that you're going to be hearing a lot about. Today, again, just to be 100% honest, there's 4 makers of cameras, 5, it's really, it's the Nikon, Canon, Vlad, Sony, Fuji. They're all making phenomenal systems. But I do feel that this system is definitely on the way up, and you're going to be hearing a lot about Fuji. I mean, already we heard, Fuji's is kind of, in the film world was always, one of the great films that we turn to, and now they're producing these great cameras. So I think they're doing a great job. Really wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I was, when I started shooting, I was mostly a black and white shooter, but on color assignments, I always shot Provia, Velvia. Does anybody remember these names? Stuff. And then coming here and shooting, and I have throughout my career shot some Fuji cameras, so it's not the first time, but this medium format, if you guys have a chance to use it, is really unbelievable. And the lenses are so fast. And you guys would know what I mean by a fast lens? Most of you guys are photographers. I mean, really, to have, I love fast, fixed lenses. And they're sharp, wide open, which is really impressive. But I would say for people starting out, for students, I think this is amazing. So many people go for this overkill and they keep saying, well, if I get this camera, I'll take a great shot. If I do this or that. All these cameras are great, and all these brands make great cameras. But the simplicity of this, when you get back down to basics, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, you've got it right on this camera.
तो ये था AMV न्यूज़। आपने अगर जो ये चैनल सब्सक्राइब नहीं किया तो आप ज़रूर से कीजिए, और स्पेशली बेल आइकन भी दबाइए, जिसकी वजह से हमारे जो एपिसोड है वो रिलीज़ होते ही आपके मोबाइल में आ सकता है। तो आप ज़रूर से AMV न्यूज़ सब्सक्राइब कीजिए। और स्पेशली आपको कोई इन्फॉर्मेशन शेयर करनी है तो आप ज़रूर से हमारा नंबर नोट डाउन कर लीजिए, जो AMV न्यूज़ का है 9223392434, और हमारा ईमेल आईडी भी आप लिख सकते हैं info.amvnews@gmail.com। फिर मुलाकात होगी नए प्रोडक्ट, नई सर्विस, फ़ोटो वीडियो इंडस्ट्रीज से जुड़ी हुई सभी खबरें के साथ। मैं अतुल जोशी यहाँ से आपका परमिशन लेता हूँ कि नए इन्फॉर्मेशन आपके लिए जोड़ सकूँ।